Hi. Well, I'm the non-boarder, and the three of us, and I'm a counsellor and an internal family systems therapist. And oh, sorry, yeah, can you hear me now? And I met Karen when I did Nick Duffel's specialist training in working with ex-boarders back in 2017. So I just wanted to start off just by talking a little bit about how I come to be here as a non-boarder in this world of boarders, and come to have ended up specialising in working with ex-boarders. And often these connections that we have are quite out of our awareness or unconscious, and that was definitely the case for me. So it wasn't until I was filling in the application form for Nick Duffel's training that I suddenly clicked that actually both my parents had been sent away to boarding school. And whilst I could say a bit more about my personal journey, I thought that as this is a conference for boarding school survivors, I'd share some of what I've learned about my work with ex-boarders, and I thought that actually I would focus today on my work with women's experience of boarding, as that often doesn't get a lot of attention. Before I dive in, I also just want to acknowledge and say a big thank you to all the women I have learnt from, starting off with my clients, my supervisor Pippa Foster, Joy Shabieran, Ruth Tudor, and the rest of the women's workshop team, all my colleagues, including Karen and Amelia White, who I think is also here. And I also want to thank Margaret and Alison for bringing us all together here today. So, yes, Karen and I met back in 2017, and it was just about a year ago that Karen and I went for a walk. And in the course of that walk, we started to talk about a felt sense that we had of a lack of specific attention that was paid to women's boarding experiences. And we decided to do something about it. So we developed a training for therapists specifically about working with women ex-boarders, which drew on our experience of working with our clients, and also the existing literature. Thank you, Joy Shabieran and Nick Duffel, for that. We also ended up doing some what I call late feminism studies. Being sent away to a boarding school has a profound psychological impact on boys and girls, and there are differences. The first version of this talk that I came up with was okay, and I've got to say it was a bit theoretical, and I'm embarrassed to say a bit designed to make me sound like a clever therapist. So I went for a walk. The walks are good. And I asked myself what the women I have worked with and been inspired by would really want me to say here today. And so I came up with a list of the sort of things the women I have met have said to me. And the thinking behind this is just to normalise these things as being a common and understandable result of boarding. So here goes. Don't be deceived by my cool, calm and collected exterior. I have had to be stoic and hide my feelings. If I say I've been a bit down, I have been very depressed. Please listen carefully. Friendships with other women are difficult. Growing up at school, we were encouraged to compete with each other in sports, academically, and in obedience in various forms. Later, we competed for men. Going through puberty in a woman's body in a boarding school was so shaming, I disconnected from my body. I have spent my whole life fitting in with and supporting other people living their lives. I don't feel as important as other people. We might not have been caned, but other girls and the staff at school were expert in relational bullying. I have a vicious inner critic, which is also a misogynist. I have a part that is very critical of other women. I had a career, but I gave it up when I got married and had children. Deep down, the message was that my fulfillment would be in motherhood and having children married to the right sort of man. I didn't get married and have children because I had no idea how to have a relationship with a man. I'm a lesbian. I've known this since I was 12 or 13, and there was no place for this at school. I still struggle with feelings of shame around my sexuality because of this. Boarding school teaches you to be fiercely independent, so I feel shame about needing anyone else. I came from a different culture and country. The shock was enormous. I didn't get any help or understanding around this from the staff or other girls. Self-care is so hard. At boarding school, you are rewarded for being needless, stoic, and self-sacrificing. I am very anxious a lot of the time and hide it very well. When I am anxious, in order to feel safe, I might need to feel very in control of whatever is happening. I also wanted to say a little bit about systemic and cultural factors. So, as Judith Oakley has said, she's a social anthropologist, in the boarding school system, boys are educated for power and girls are educated for dependence. Growing up in a patriarchal institution, or an institution which follows patriarchal values, is on the basis that boys are better than girls, men are better than women, has a very specific impact on the girl and the woman. And if this feels like a depressing picture, I also want to say how very healing it is for the women I have worked with to be able to talk about these difficulties and have them acknowledged, normalised and de-shamed. I also want to share how creative the women I work with have been in their healing journeys, writing, drawing, painting, dancing, walking, singing and swimming. Women, like men, are wonderful human beings. It's just that a boarding school education doesn't tend to leave you feeling that way. There is a great energy at the moment as we find more and more women coming to do this work and have their voices heard. We don't have to be in competition with other women or men. And it's amazing what we can do when we support each other.